Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we have another Gun Gripe episode for you, and we're going to talk about vetting your equipment. That's right. Can you really trust your equipment? Well, we're going to dive into this a little bit. Before we get started, though, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our friends at RMA Armament. They make some awesome body armor. They've got a variety of different composite and steel offerings. They do a really great job, all American made from start to finish, veteran owned and operated company, really great group of people. We've done a lot of videos on their armor. It's been holding up really, really great. And we have many more videos on the way with their stuff. So check them out, RMA Armament, tell them we sent you. All right, so we're going to get into this a little bit. And this is a gripe that has more or less sort of been cultivating for almost our entire existences, right? When you think about this concept of vetting your gear, like there are so many people, Chad, that will take a gun, and let's just start out talking about guns since this is a gun channel, obviously, but there's so many people that will take their firearm, load some ammo in the mag, put it in a holster, and go about their everyday business without even shooting it, making sure it works with whatever ammo they've got in it, or the type of person that takes a gun and just loads the rounds in the magazine, puts it on the nightstand, and goes, all right, I'm good, I'm armed, right? Like, not really vetting their gear, right?
I got mine.
Yeah, I got mine. Well,
Like,
you know.
I got it right here.
That's it.
Right there if I need it. Oh, shoot, it don't work.
Well, I mean, look.
Oh, no.
Look, it happens, right? So, you know, when it comes to the whole idea of vetting your gear, you know, we have these different biases that we apply to our life, right? Like Chad said, the person says, well, I've got mine, right? I've got my gun. All right, that's my check in the box. I'm armed. Hooray, I move on with life. It's not quite so simple, right? You know, when you even look at like YouTube videos or social media and everything like that, and you look at what everyone else is doing, right? All right, I'm going to go look up a YouTube video, and I'm going to go seek out this information, and I'm going to go, okay, here's this person reviewed or did a video on this gun. This person did a video on the same gun, and we're going to look at all of these different concepts, what everybody thinks about this gun. We go through our confirmation biases. That's called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when, let's say you buy a gun and then you go, all right, now I'm going to go and binge watch all the content on the gun after I've already bought it. That's confirmation bias. It's like you've already bought the gun, you've already solidified your purchase decision, but now you're going to go and consume all this content about it to make sure you really made the right decision. And it's something that we're all sort of guilty of doing. I mean,
And it doesn't just involve guns. It involves everything else that you might want to consume.
Correct.
But guns are one of those things that people associate with a tool, a defensive tool to potentially protect themselves, you know, and save their life one day. And it amazes me the amount of people out there that don't just take their gun and go to the range and just shoot it. I mean, like Eric said, so many people buy the gun and just take it home and leave it in the box and not even load the magazine even sometimes. And they just like, well, I've got it. It's here collecting dust. It still has the original factory grease on it. It's never been fired. But like Eric said, it's just a check in the box. But look, the reason that you vet your equipment, and this is just one example, all right? So our friend John purchased a firearm. I will not say what it was, but he took it out the first time to shoot it, and it was missing the guide rod. First shot, slide locks to the rear because it overcomes the recoil spring. There's nothing to stop it. And it was an act of Congress to get that thing jimmied apart and figure out what the problem was, and it came from the factory like that. You never know. Quality controls can go awry sometimes, but it can happen to the best names out there, and it has happened to the best names out there. You have to vet your equipment and make sure it's going to work for you in your situation.
that's right. I mean, and you know, when you think about all of the YouTube videos that are out there on a given product, right? Like, I know that a lot of folks catch flack where it's like, okay, a new product came out. For instance, let's use the Smith & Wesson M&P 12 shotgun, for instance, right? Like, it's not uncommon knowledge, right? Like people know that when a new product comes out, that a lot of YouTubers might receive a product in conjunction with the release in order to like put out content or whatever on a given product, right? So it's normal for us to go, holy crap, now we're being just completely covered up with all this random content all at once because everyone wants to be the first person to get their video out.
Yep.
It's natural for us to want to do that as people because, look, the thing is, when you get into the social media types, a lot of folks tend to be have a level of vanity, right? Where they want to be the first, they want to be the best, they want to, be the one to break the story. Like when you look at gun control when it's coming out, and it's like someone wants to jump the gun on the information and be the first person to get a video out, and the news does that, right? The mainstream media, they'll be at risk of getting the information wrong in the hopes of being the first one to break the story. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that is how it is when it comes to like gun releases and stuff. But the thing is, all right, say you go and you watch 10 different YouTube videos of people doing, running the gun in question, right? And let's say that 9 out of 10 of them are having a pretty good experience with it. Well, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. You can go, okay, there's a few ways to look at that. One is, well, the gun must be good if they're all having a positive experience with this particular product like they are. Or two, you can go, you know what, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt and I'm going to go get the gun myself and shoot it and vet it and make sure that it's good. So vetting your equipment, it's okay to have a level of confirmation bias. Maybe you've already bought a gun and then you look up one of the many videos out there on the gun that you bought and you just go, well, I want to see what this person thinks about it. Even though I've already bought it, I just want to know what they think. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're the kind of person that goes, all right, I don't know anything about this particular gun, so I'm going to go consume as much content as I possibly can and learn as much as I can to know if this gun is even for me at all to begin with. So there's nothing wrong with looking at a piece of content just as a learning experience to go, all right, I just want to see what these people are experiencing on the range or what kind of accuracy it can have, or I don't know, Tim or Ian or someone doing a mud test. Hey, let's see what it can do in a mud environment. So there's all these things and testing protocols that different people come up with, and it does provide some good information to kind of figure out if that gun is going to be for you or not. But at the end of the day, it's important to vet your equipment.
Well, it's also all right. So just to piggyback on what Eric's talking about here. All the different channels that might show the same firearm, all right, most of those channels are in different parts of the country, right? Like Tim, for example, he's up in the frigid, north in Indiana, and he gets like 10 feet of snow, in like November, right? And then we see our friends like out at Brownells and stuff shooting different stuff, and they've got like, negative 40-degree wind chills and crap like that. So you want to talk about vetting equipment, like, you get to see the same equipment ran in various weather conditions, various climates, regions, things like that.
And we're down here in the devil's butthole.
Oh, dude, like dry and arid out west, and then like air made of hot soup down here in the south. So you do get to see that good variety. And speaking about vetting equipment, just as an example, like, okay, I recently got scuba certified, all right, so dive certified, and I've been researching equipment like you wouldn't believe. And when you talk about something that you can bet your life on, you're 90 feet under the water, you better make sure that your equipment is good, okay? And
it's not the time to wonder if you made the right purchase decision.
But I've found several good resources that test all the equipment that I've purchased. They test it tried and true. They put it in pressure vessels and things like that, test regulators and all the other equipment. And talking to people at the dive shop, it's the same thing anybody would do if they're going out to buy something like a firearm. You're going to talk to people at the gun shop. You're going to watch videos. You're going to find the most reputable sources, except us. I don't know about us, but, that can provide the information that you're looking for. And, you're going to use that for a wise decision on your purchase. And it works with everything. I mean, we could keep going on examples.
I agree.
But, like the videos and stuff that you guys see us do, a majority of the time, if it's like a new product, like brand new, like new design, newly released by this company, like you've never seen one before, right? We're going to take it out of the box and look it over and maybe pull it apart, shoot it a little bit, and kind of get a feel for it before we even do the video. If it's something like a Glock, okay, that there's, countless other models that are exactly the same, but they have different numbers on the side of them, it's a pretty good bet that it's probably going to work right out of the box pretty well. So we open the box up, wipe the grease off of it, and proceed to do the video on it. You guys kind of follow along and see what we see. That's kind of the way that we like to do things, because we bring y'all along to the range for the ride, and you see what we see, and you experience the same problems, if we have any, that we experience, and you experience the same joy that we experience as well if things just go, to the T and work great. But then we go back and revisit things. I mean, like we did with the SIGs, like the 365, and we put thousands of rounds through those guns because we were also vetting other folks who had had problems in the past, and we were vetting the newer releases that came out and some of the improvements that were made.
I agree.
So, I mean, you're going to get that with us and other channels and things that you see out there online.
I mean, I saw that Tim had the issues with the primer drag on the 365, so we wanted to try to replicate his result.
Yep.
It's not necessarily a chest pumping thing, but it's more of a supportive thing.
With Tim, it is.
We want to support his efforts, and hopefully, if we could replicate it, then all right, cool, we're on to something. And then we're getting multiple things happening.
Reinforces.
But also,
findings.
my 365 was a newer 365, so It's interesting when you see someone have an issue or a failure, you want to try to replicate that to see if maybe there's some far-reaching problem, and then you can go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, this is obviously an issue that many people are having, and that's how you make things better, right?
Yeah.
So, it's very important to just kind of show things like as you see it when it comes to what you're doing, and we've always been very good about just kind of, hey, we're going to let the cameras roll, we're going to do our thing. That's why I like Hickok's videos too, because he just turns on the camera and they shoot guns, and there it is. What you see is what you get, and I appreciate that type of an overall view. I like the M17. Okay, for a long time there was all the stuff floating around about the M17s not being drop safe and having discharge and stuff. And look, that's a very valid concern. If there's some issue, it's important, as we say, to vet your equipment. And obviously, if the military's, buying these things, and it's got to be right. Now, of course, SIG addressed the issue and apparently has fixed the problem, but it doesn't mean that problems won't exist. You shouldn't just say, oh, well, the military bought it, I should buy it. Or YouTuber A through D bought it and used it and they had good results. It doesn't mean that you'll have good results. So just because you've been sold by someone, right, if you watched 5 different videos on one given type of product and you went, you know what, all those folks had relatively good things to say about it, I think I'll buy it. Don't just think, all right, well, they vetted it, so I'm just going to cram some rounds in it, put it in a holster, and go about my day. No. Every single gun is an individual. Gun is a mechanical device that can and will have issues from time to time. There are many, many things that must occur in a very specific set of revolutions that must occur in order for a firearm to complete a firing cycle and do its job as a gun. Especially, I think we're more talking about semi-automatics here because, there's a little bit more complicated thing going on than like a bolt gun or a single shot. So just because your favorite YouTuber did a video on something and you go, wow, I want that, don't take that 100% for face value, because the gun you got might have been built on a Friday when everyone was ready to go home, or
Monday when everybody was still
hungover
recovering from a hangover.
Yeah, so just like any other consumer good, no matter what it might be, you might occasionally get a gun that has a little bit of a tiny issue. All right, good example. I just picked up a Benelli M3, and we went out to do a video on it the other day. And you're thinking, wow, all right, Benelli M3, awesome shotgun. I love Benelli shotguns. They're like by far my favorite shotguns. They're great. They're awesome. They're wonderful guns. You would never think, oh, well, would I ever need to vet, let's just say in this case, how good my Benelli M3 might work. If you told someone that you'd have an issue of a Benelli M3, they'd tell you you're crazy, right? Brand new Benelli M3 LE model. Took it out, and for whatever reason, I was just having issues transferring from semi to pump mode, and every time I would go to pump mode, I would actually partially unlock the bolt just a little bit, and then when I would squeeze the trigger, it would actually just drop the shell into the carrier and not fire. The hammer would drop and not fire because the bolt was a little bit out of battery. Well, come to find out, Chad and I were looking at the M3, and sure enough, the little clasp or whatever that attaches the front of the fore end to the top there. When you're in pump mode, it locks back into place. Was a little bit loose, even from the factory. So literally just took the fore end, cheated it down, gave it a little bit of pressure, all good. But sometimes just the tiny little details can make a big difference in what your experience might be.
Look, and also out of the box, the magazine spring was a little bit bound up, and the clamp, the magazine tube clamp, was a little bit tight, and it was preventing the entire tube from being loaded. So you were only getting like 5 rounds in it, and we're thinking like, what the heck is going on, you know? So it's those little things, and you have to know how to solve those problems. And we've talked about this in previous gripes too. You have to have the knowledge to be able to, assess the situation and diagnose these issues and then fix them and then continue on with your testing and making sure things work.
You also need to know when to walk away. Look, sometimes it's important to realize, hey, I'm over my head in this, right? Our Mossberg 590, the Mariner that we did the video on, we mentioned in the video where we had to send it back to Mossberg for warranty. But before we did, what did we do? We were pulling it apart, looking at it, taking the string, stretching it, checking the follower. We're like, why is this thing not feeding? We could not figure out for the life of us why the shotgun wouldn't feed from the magazine effectively. And we just, instead of driving ourselves crazy, what we do? We just, we're going to call up Mossberg and ask for some help here. So it's okay to call the company and say, hey, I'm having an issue. And a reputable company, they're going to make it right. They're going to figure out what is going on, and they're going to make you whole on that. So know when to walk away.
Eric texted me the other day, and he was getting frustrated with the B&T, the large format chassis with the Glock 40 in 10 millimeter. Couldn't get the thing to zero. It's like, I cannot get this thing to zero. I don't know what I'm doing. I've gone up and down and left and right as far as it'll go, and it just won't hit the right side of a barn.
Dude.
I came over and looked at it, and the SRO on top of it was a little bit tall and kind of goofy, like not really that comfortable. So we traded it out for a regular RMR. I went and I kind of, just bore-sided it a little bit, went out to the range, got it zeroed, we fine-tuned it, and everything was hunky-dory, and we recently filmed a video on it. It may or may not be live yet, but just little things like that. Eric walked away from it. I came in and took a look. I do the same thing. I get frustrated with something. He takes a look at it, and we're good.
So another good aspect to the vetting your gear: always get a second opinion.
Yes.
Always get a buddy to help you. If you run into a brick wall and for whatever reason you're just not seeing the problem in the right light, walk away. Let someone else look at it. Right. Okay. It always makes me think of the movie Sling Blade. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I always think of this. It just every time this happens, it's like an inside joke. So, all right, what happens? They're like, man, I've been working on that lawnmower for days, and I can't figure out why in the heck that sucker is not working. And what does Carl do? Carl walks over. He thinks the most simplest thing. He opens up the gas cap, looks in, goes, I ain't got no gas in it. Right? So it's like sometimes it takes a certain person that can just look at a problem from a different perspective in a way that you wouldn't. You're sitting here looking at spark plug, gaps and wires and all kind of fancy things and not real things just out of fuel, right? So that's a very interesting part of that movie that a lot of us sometimes we go, you know what, we're looking at all of the very, very crazy things regarding a problem and not the most basic building blocks of a problem. So don't be afraid to walk away and let someone else have a look or get a second opinion.
All right, so example regarding gear, all right? Not gun related, gear related, all right? So you got some body armor, you got a battle belt, right? So Eric set up a war belt before I set, a nice one up. And he had one of our large medical pouches on the rear. And John and I kind of both were like, I'm not sure it's going to be very comfortable if you got to lay down. Well, he took one of Rob Pincus's classes, and you were on your back, and you're like, yeah, this may not be the best idea. So you got to use your gear as well. Not only like with firearms and everything, going out and testing and things like that, but you got to clear malfunctions. You've got to roll around with your gear on. You got to take some training classes, things like that. You got to use your stuff and make sure that you're comfortable with it. Vetting is not just making sure that everything is going to function as it needs to. Vetting is also, the process of making sure that you are knowledgeable on how to operate and use that gear to 110% efficiency.
That's absolutely right. And another thing that I'll add to that too is one of the cool things about having buddies or friends or whatever that let's say, okay, I put together a battle belt before Chad did, and then Chad decided, all right, well, I want to put together a similar type of thing.
I can see your shortcomings.
It's a very it's a very handy thing. But see, he can look at my belt and go, you know what, this is cool, but maybe I would do it a little bit different. And then guess what? He puts together one, and he corrects some of the shortcomings that I came up with. Well, maybe the next belt that I put together, I might change something on mine and find a minor deficiency on his. And see that you always piggyback off of your buddies. So if you got a group of guys that are buying gear and y'all are all into that type of stuff, support each other and figure out ways to improve each other's kit a little bit. One guy goes, well, I was rolling around and this came loose. All right, well, why? Why did it come loose? I dropped this. All right, well, you dropped it. Why? Is it retention not good enough on the XYZ? So there's all these little things you kind of dial in as a group, and it's totally okay to go on social media, to go on YouTube videos and look at what people are doing and see how that's working compared to what you're doing and kind of go, oh, cool, that gave me an idea. Or you might see the way that somebody employed a certain tactic or a certain piece of gear or the way that they used a certain piece of gear. For instance, when we did the How Far Will a 22 Kill video and we revisited that video, and then Chad using that like prism thing. What was that?
It's the Charlie macro from TACOM HQ.
Right. So like that Charlie macro, using that in conjunction with the existing rifle to do some really crazy stuff with the 22. So sometimes you take gear to their limits and you see what things can do, like the meltdown videos. I've always thought that was such an intriguing concept. Recently, the folks over in Russia at Kalashnikov actually did their own meltdown on an AK recently. And this is a super recent video that they just put up. And their result was very, very drastically different than the result that I got when I did my meltdown. And theirs was conducted in a very, very similar fashion in terms of the way I did it. I believe their Kalashnikov wound up running like 1,600 rounds. And then once it cooled, I guess they burned the handguard off, and then once it cooled down, the gun continued to perform to standard, reasonably to standard. I'm sure a little burned out a bit there, a little crispy, if you will. But it's so interesting to see that when you apply such a crazy testing standard, to see where everybody kind of winds up coming into that. So I do enjoy watching mud tests and torture tests and watching people do things to firearms that I would never do. And I like doing things to firearms that no one else would ever do because, quite frankly, it's entertaining, but it's also educational. We figure out, all right, how far can we push this in a way that nobody would ever push it? And sometimes that's just fun.
It is. Do. I mean, trying to think of any more examples of like vetting gear.
Ammo. Carry ammo.
Ammo. All right. We've had numerous instances, and we've talked about this in previous videos as well, like bad days at the range. All right, we've discussed this topic, but every now and again we'll have a firearm that we take out to the range, and we have a variety of ammunition or whatever, and something just will not mesh. Like a particular type of ammunition just will not work in it. So vetting your ammunition. All right, well, this ammo doesn't work in this gun. Well, if you have multiple handguns or multiple, like, say, pistol caliber carbines, whatever the case is, you get a couple other variables introduced. All right, you say, okay, let me see if this firearm works well with this ammunition. Then I can narrow it down and say, okay, it must be this gun that's having the problem and it's not the ammunition. If all of the guns suffer the same inconsistencies and the same problems, either with accuracy or precision, or that's just jamming right and left, you're having failures to feed, failures to fire, whatever the case is, failures to eject, then something is up with that ammunition, and you can put it to the side and say, okay, well, there's my problem, everything else is good. Circling back to the problem solving aspect of this, but you have to be able to vet your ammunition, especially.
That's right.
Make sure that it's going to work.
So vetting your ammunition, right? Eliminating the variables. Control the variables. So always understand what your variables are and how you're going to control those variables. Is it a magazine issue? Is the magazine spring worn out? Is the ammunition weak? Is it too strong? Is it not to spec? Is it not crimped properly? Is the overall length too long? Are the springs in the gun weak? Is the chamber undersized, oversized? Is there a headspace issue? Is the gas system not adjusted properly? Are the feed lips spread out and bent? Are they cracked? There's so many things that can make the perfect balance of a gun operating perfectly turn to crap really quickly. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider. So when you watch a YouTube video of someone running your favorite gun, and let's say there's an issue, something bad happens, well, you can't say that now all of those guns are bad. It just means that they ran into a problem that either, one, they did not discover the variable that caused the issue, two, they didn't do good enough detective work to figure out the issue or to have the foresight to know what the issue could be, right? Or let's say that 5 people shoot the gun and it runs really, really good. Does that mean that every single other one is going to have exactly the same, perfect functionality? Not necessarily. Right? Grantham, when he did his video on the MDR, he was having a lot of issues with the MDR. I find that to be odd, so like, Tim, I know he's got one, I've got one, I know Mr. Guns and Gear, I believe, has one, and it's like, we haven't had very many issues.
So the early ones did have some gas system issues, and we've covered this too, but the early MDRs in 308, they did have some issues with the gas system with most of the commercial and surplus ammunition that was out there that consumers were, testing in it. Okay, once the guns hit the market. What I understand the issue was the large lot of ammunition that Desert Tech purchased in order to do the development of that rifle was out of spec. Okay, so they tested it with out of spec ammo, weren't aware of it, and what did they do? They went back to the drawing board on the gas system. They replaced all the gas plugs and everything for all the consumers out there who had purchased the rifle for free. They just basically did a soft recall, more or less, like, hey, send your gun back in or we'll just send you the parts and pop them in. Hey, corrected the issue. But like you said, I mean, some of the other people were having some serious issues out of it, like feeding and extraction, such as that. We didn't see those issues, but again, this is why you watch multiple pieces of content and get multiple opinions and also multiple situations where different ammunition might be ran, different magazines might be ran. It might be ran off a bench instead of in a like offhand situation, that sort of thing. I mean, the possibilities and variables are endless. Yeah, it's like mind-boggling.
Look. And I absolutely trust his word. Of course. I mean, if he's having an issue, he's having an issue. There's no bottom line. I trust everything.
Look, what I'll let him do, I don't want to do it, but what I'll let him do is, Grantham, is actually give himself Grand Thumb. He can do that. I'll watch that all day long.
Okay. I'm sure that won't take much,
he's right? Like, giving myself Grand Thumb. Ow!
Oh, man. Or the Hakeem or the AG-42. The way that bolt smacks.
Look, we still need to do that video. Here we are. Squirrel! We still need to do that video putting a hot dog in it, I ain't sticking my thumb in there.
We will. So, God, again, approaching it from that perspective, vet your gear. It's super important. Like, don't just take someone's word for something. I guess that's what we're really getting at here. One more quick thing. Like when we do some of our videos, I just want to mention this. And I know maybe some people watch our content and they kind of see what we're doing. They understand why we're doing it. But I want to also clarify too. Like on some of the videos we do, you'll notice that if there's like different brands of magazines, like we're going back to the B&T USWG and the big frame, the 4D MOS. We just did the video the other day. And then, we were having issues out of the Chris mags. Right?
The Chris extensions.
You get the Chris 10mm extensions and then put them on the mag and you got the 33 round mag. Well, the SGM mag ran great. The stock 15-shot Glock mags ran great. All right, the Chris extensions, for whatever reason, having an issue. All right, you would think one mag having an issue, maybe it's a fluke. All right, well, we had the same issue out of all 4 magazines. So, all right, now when you get into detective work, now what? Is the magazine put together improperly? Did I not load it properly? Is it just not a good fit for that particular gun in that particular situation? Maybe those mags will run like a Scalded Ape out of a Chris Vector in full auto. Who knows? But that's the thing. You can't just go, well, this mag was $75. It must be good. I'm just going to load it and stick it in the gun and here we are. No, oddly enough, the $25 SGM ran better than the Chris mag. Now, it's just so weird. So that's why we test different mags. Like if there's a lot of different magazines available from different brands, we try to show those off to see if that gun is going to potentially cause an issue with maybe a certain brand of magazine. Same thing with the ammunition. We try, when the ammo availability is a little bit easier to get around, I do like to test out a variety of different carry loads, especially in pistols and stuff, to make sure that it's going to digest a wide variety of different carry ammo. Because it's always good to know, right? Just to see maybe one brand of ammo might cause a potential issue. in the carry gun. So that gives us an idea of, all right, well, maybe this is something we can look at closer, and it merits further assessment.
I'll mention like kind of one more example, and this will be real quick, but when we vet, equipment here on the channel, just for example, like if we're testing a new cartridge, whatever the case is, we're going to get as many data points as we can. I'm going to go out to the range, I'm going to group this stuff, I'm going to chronograph it, I'm going to collect all the data that I possibly can so we can go into the body of the video with as much knowledge and experience to pass on to you guys as physically possible. We've done it with like 224 Valkyrie. I did it a lot with like 6AR when I started playing around with that cartridge. And like most recently, we've been playing around with 350 Legend, and like we found some issues. Like I've hand loaded some, I can get it working just fine because the bullet diameters are the right size, but there's been numerous issues even up to this point with 350 Legend in multiple firearms, and it's we've narrowed it down to an ammunition issue between the various manufacturers, just like in previous previous iterations with other cartridges. But when we do these type of tests, I mean, we are vetting things, especially for the viewers, but like we're also doing it for ourselves too, so we have the knowledge moving forward, and we pass that knowledge on to other videos. Like every little scrap of data that I collect, it gives me a little bit more insight into future projects, because I know kind of what happened back then with this particular chambering or this particular bullet weight and twist rate, or bullet weight and twist rate of this barrel, the stability factor, that was implemented there and things like that. All those little details kind of, you kind of grow along.
That's right.
But anyways,
and sometimes you just have to know when to cut the cord and walk away.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes a given project, or let's just say it's some random product, and then everyone ends up having a lot of issues out of it. Sometimes you just cut the cord and walk away and move on to something else. Like there's so much variety in things that are going on. There's so many ways that you can protect yourself. So many great proven cartridges. So many great proven platforms. Sometimes when something new comes along, if there's a lot of issues and it just seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, it's totally okay to cut the cord and walk away and go back to the tried and true.
And
that's
look,
the beauty of it. You don't have to, nothing dictates that you have to accept the newest and greatest and keep up with the Joneses.
And then look, with a lot of this kind of stuff that's out there on the market now, you see a lot of people doing videos on it, and if it doesn't really suit your fancy, come back and revisit it months down the line, and maybe there'll be some improvements that came along, whatever, maybe the problems will be solved, and then, you'll see content creators out there, whatever, vetting the new products, and it's like, hey, okay, maybe I'll try this now.
Yeah, or maybe a revisit.
Yeah, whatever the case is, but it's important to make sure that everything that you would use to defend yourself with, hunt with, obviously if you're going to hunt, you want to make sure your gear is going to work because your life may depend on it, whether you might not think so or not. In a situation down the line, you may have to hunt to survive. There's no telling what might happen in this world. People get used to living comfortably, and they don't really think about what may come to pass. So thinking about these things now is good because you don't have to think about them later. And you don't want to be testing your gear in the middle of some situation where it's not ideal.
That's right. So, you never know. You might be on the hunt of a lifetime, about to pull the trigger on a trophy animal, and because you bumped your scope or didn't tighten up your screws to spec or something happened, right? Something caused that hunt to not go the way you wanted to, and it happens, right? So absolutely right. I think this is a good gripe, and hopefully some of you understand where we're coming from. We want the air of the content of what we do. We want to be helpful. We want people to get good information and try to see things from our perspective, and that we're trying to, figure out issues and get people pointed in the right direction so they can make informed decisions about things. But we're not going to tell you, go buy this or go buy that. You notice we don't ever do that in our videos. I'm not going to tell you to go buy something. You do your thing.
Now, I will tell y'all to go buy one thing. Now, you just call 1-888-888-8888, and you get yourself a 30 DVD collection of how to diagnose all common gun problems right here from this here man.
Now,
he just went through it mostly in this video.
What I will tell you
$29.99 plus shipping and handling now.
What I will tell you to go buy is get over to Ballistic Ink and pick yourself up a snazzy t-shirt. Look at that t-shirt.
Reef Koreans. Man, you did a good job on that.
There is no way. You are going to be the talk of the town when you walk down the street with your snazzy Ballistic Ink t-shirt. And we would greatly support that, and our shooting habit will greatly appreciate you very much for supporting us.
We need supplies to be able to vet these products for you guys. So please support us. Come on now.
All right, anyway, on a serious note, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I think this pretty much wraps this one up. But, a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. And yeah, if you want to go over to Ballistic Ink and pick up a shirt, we're not going to complain about that. We've got some great designs, some edgy designs too, which are really great. Go check them out. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can certainly do so in that way. And look, have a great day. And look, before you take that pistol and put it in your holster and go out and try to protect yourself with it, vet that gear. Check your gear. Do not take any YouTuber's word for it. Don't take a social media person's word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it, except your personal experience should be the end-all, do-all confirmation that you need to know that your gear is good and will work for you. You are the last line when it comes to protecting yourself with a firearm and knowing that gear, that you can trust your life to it. And that is on you guys. Like, make sure you are checking your stuff and being safe out there.
Yep.
Have a good one. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.
Take care, guys.